Okay, hello everybody. This is Dr. Annette Farovich. And gotta turn that down a little bit. I'm likely screaming you guys out. Okay, well, thank you for joining me. If you are joining me live, and by the way, yeah, I hope you are joining me live because they don't usually have very many people. And you can see that I am running late and I'm checking my hair because that's what we do when we get online. Okay, I want to adjust here just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so today we have a new episode number 2, actually, in our series on a healthy new you in 2022. And so you've also likely seen my theme, a happy now year, a happy wow year. And what we're looking for is to get started right now with making some healthy changes. And so that's what I'm hoping that you are planning to do with me, because that is what I am planning to do with you. Now I'm going to bypass all the reasons why I did not get online on time here. And it has to do with technology, and it has to do with hair, and it has to do with makeup. Let's see here. There we go. No, other way. None of which I have a team for, right? So I have to do it all by myself, so you can blame me if I'm not, on time or looking my best. Hold on one second. I got to move this microphone just a little bit closer. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I said 4 o'clock Central Standard Time, so that puts me at just about on time, doesn't it? All right. Let me open this up a little bit for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do is, again, it's a healthy new you in 2022, and we're going to go ahead and get started. If you remember last week what we talked about, and if you haven't seen it, it was a really good video. Again, I'm working on editing these videos, but when I have them, a team to help me edit them, and I get them out there, we're going to have quite a few series for you already in line, and you can kind of binge on my series. And again, the unique thing about these series is that they are a series, and they're a series on mental health, and most videos that you're going to see really are there to capture your short-term attention and keep you moving along like TikTok, and that's not really what this is here for. This is really here for you to be able to get the benefit of some real strategies. So long-term advice for some long-term strategies for some long-term changes in 2022. That's what I'm here to help you to do. Okay, so let's go ahead then, like I said, and get started. Let's take a look at the agenda that we've had, which you only had a brief look at in my very first introductory video. And the last video that I did on vitamin D, you didn't see this. I didn't have it ready and I didn't have it made. Anyway, so here is our agenda for 2022. January 2nd, we started getting ready and we introduced a healthy new you. Happy now year, happy wow year. January 9th, what we talked about was vitamin D and the relationship that vitamin D has to many of the comorbidities or risk factors that we see related to COVID-19. And so take a look at that video so you can see, make sure that you are getting your vitamin D level up there. You need to get a blood test to find out how low your vitamin D level is. But if you recall, we were talking about vitamin D levels are almost always deficient, never at toxic levels, and in particular not for those individuals in Michigan or north of the line between that spans across Los Angeles to Atlanta, Georgia. Almost all those individuals are not getting enough sunshine for vitamin D. But look for some more information, especially about those risk factors for individuals who have low vitamin D and keeping yourself safe from COVID. January 16th, that's today. We're talking about weight gain and weight loss and exercise. So stay tuned for some really good advice about what I've learned about this. Next week, Sunday at hopefully 4 o'clock. What's different about our food today? So if you're interested in why maybe we are gaining weight or maybe we aren't staying healthy, let's take an in-depth look at our food today. January 24th, a week from tomorrow, we are going to start our healthy cleanse. And if you want to know what you're supposed to be doing for a healthy cleanse, please make sure that you remember to visit my website, www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't have that in front. That should always be in front. Okay, so visit my website, www.healthymindbodyspirit.net, for more information on how to start that healthy cleanse. You can also look at last week's live video on vitamin D, where I also go through what we're supposed to do, and I'm going to give you a reminder in just a minute. January 30th, we're going to be talking about sugar. We're going to mention the negative health consequences to eating a lot of sugar. And we have had a lot of campaigns to look out for carbohydrates. We've had campaigns to look out for fats, but we have not had the appropriate campaign for us to take a look and look out for sugar. So January 30th, we're going to talk more about that and what insulin resistance is and how we might be able to prevent that. We have epidemic rates of insulin resistance and diabetes. So pay attention to that for Healthy New You in 2022. February 6th, we're going to be talking about supplements and medicine and also your immune system. So the effects that some of the supplements might have on your immune system, some of the medications that you're taking, and how they affect being a healthy individual. February 13th, we're going to be taking a look at the thyroid, adrenal glands, and stress. All the way in our presentations, we weave many of these topics throughout, but here on the February 13th, we're going to be highlighting that because today we're going to be talking about chronic levels of cortisol in our blood and what that does, and those are all related to adrenal glands. On February 20th, we're going to be talking about getting clean, because staying healthy is not just about exercise and diet, although so much of it is, but also we want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves from things like viruses and other diseases. And then on February 27th, what I'm going to do is go from a healthy body that we're talking about, we're going to talk about a healthy mind starting on February 27th. Okay, that is our agenda. And remember that if you're looking for more information, you can always find more information on everything that I'm talking about on our website, www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. And it's not our website, it's my website. So please find out more information in particular about starting the healthy cleanse. All right, so let's go ahead and keep moving then. And what I promised you is that I was going to give you, again, just a rundown on what you want to prepare for Monday if you want to start that healthy cleanse with me. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing. So here we've got the rundown. Remember, we're starting a week from tomorrow, January 24th. So what do you need to do for a healthy cleanse? The first thing is, don't forget that I recommend that you do a healthy cleanse or a cleanse. It doesn't have to be this cleanse. You can look up other cleanses. Certainly there are liver cleanses that are out there. There are many other different types of cleanses. I know that this one that I am doing is one that I have found to be very successful for me. And so hopefully you find it successful as well. So join me and follow me along, and we will have regular updates on how we are doing on our healthy cleanse. So what do we need to do? We need to start making part of our regular routine drinking water, especially lemon water, because the acid helps us break down our foods, which means that we absorb our vitamins and nutrients better. Get your blood work done. And if you're not sure what to do with it, you can see your doctor and ask your doctor about your vitamin D levels. if you aren't sure about that, or you really want to go to somebody who really has more of a nutrition background as well as a mental health background, you can show me that blood work as well, and I will help you interpret some of those things, and you can check all of those things with your doctor if you want. Purchase the Shaklee 7-Day Healthy Cleanse. We're going to do the 7-Day Healthy Cleanse. You can purchase that separately, or you can purchase it in the Prove It Challenge. And for first-time purchasers, you can get that Prove It Challenge along with the free membership to Shaklee, which is a lifetime membership. Whenever you're a member to Shaklee, don't let it scare you. It just means you get a 15% discount for the rest of your life. You can get that membership several different ways. It's a value of $20, $19.99. However, you get it free with the Prove It Challenge along with the discount on that. So take a look at that on my website, and you can find my website, don't forget, at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. But also, you can just gotta vacillate between these for a second. And so go to my website, www.healthymindbodyspirit.net, and then what you want to do is you want to click on Shop Shaklee, and then click on Shop and look for, in the search, Cleanse, and you will find the 7-Day Healthy Cleanse. You can also search for the Prove It Challenge if you're looking for something a little bit more. That will give you a month-long test of Shaklee products. And don't forget that all of Shaklee products have a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you don't find the difference in the Prove It Challenge that you wanted to find, you can send them back empty containers and talk to Shaklee at Shaklee.com, and they will give you a full refund on that. So go to www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. And also then, remember, our classes start on January 24th. Okay. Now what we're talking about for today is we are talking about weight and problems with weight gain, problems with weight loss, and also the benefits of exercise. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to jump right into it with the idea here that, first of all, what creates weight gain? And right now in this culture and climate, the biggest thing that creates weight gain for all individuals actually is the stress that we are feeling. What ends up happening with stress is that we go into what is considered a fight or flight mode. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard about this fight or flight mode, so it's not foreign to you, but maybe you don't understand exactly what ends up happening in the body when we go into this. What happens in the body is that our body gets our energy ready for use. And how do we have energy? Well, first of all, we have energy that's stored in our bodies. So we have energy stored in fats, we have sugars, we have carbohydrates, and those are all sources of energy for us. And so our bodies need them. When we feel low in energy, we should be paying attention to a well balance between fats, carbohydrates, and low sugars. We end up having too much sugar in our body, the sugars end up going into our bloodstream, and that's when we have high levels of sugar in our blood, and this is cause for alarm for things like diabetes and also insulin resistance that we've heard so much about. Don't forget to join me in I'm looking it up over here. Don't forget to join me on January 30th when we talk about sugar and insulin resistance right here on live on our YouTube, but that will be also available when I edit those videos. So we'll take a closer look at sugar and insulin resistance, but right now we want to look at it as it relates to weight gain. We know that stress creates belly fat because what we do when we are stressed is we are telling the body that we might need additional resources. And when we tell our body that we need additional resources, then our body begins to store those resources. So stress gets us in a fight or flight mode, and that fight or flight mode tells our body we may need resources to run or to fight. And so the body stores these resources, again, keeping higher levels of sugar, keeping higher levels of carbohydrates, and keeping higher levels of fats on our body. If we don't use those, because remember, in hunter-gatherer days, we would store those up, but when we got stressed, we were able to use those, and likely they were the cause of stress, right? We were able to use that energy in order to reduce the stress. So what is the stress in hunter-gatherer days? The stress is hunting, right? For animals, for wild animals, which creates stress, which calls up the stored resources that we have, and those stored resources are used immediately in hunter-gatherer days. Now, today, we feel stress for a number of reasons, but they are very different reasons than actual events that require those resources on board. We are ruminating about our thoughts and about being in isolation and about all of these changing demands that we have because of the virus. And this is making us very stressed. We know that we have significant increases in depression, anxiety, and suicide rates. And these are beginning to challenge the risk benefit to having all these shutdowns due to the virus. So things to be paying attention to relative to your stress level. When we store up these extra resources, what ends up happening in particular with fat is that we end up storing the fat in the middles of our bodies. And what this is referred to as metabolic syndrome. This is where we end up having these apple figures. And so these apple figures demonstrate where we are holding our weight. So we're holding our weight in the middle of our body. And so what that means is that all of that fat and all of those other resources that we are collecting around our internal organs, our core organs. And so what we see then is a buildup in fat, not only in the outer layer of our abdomen, for example, but also in our internal organs. So when we get fat, our fat actually is in the outer layer of underneath the surface of our skin, right? We see when we go and we have a chicken and we go and we pull back the skin of the chicken, we can see fat there. You can also see fat though within the parts of the meat as well, right? So within the internal organs of the individual, we also get fat. But when we get fat in this apple figure, when we have this apple figure and we're holding our fat around our internal organs, what that means is we end up with fatty intestines. We end up with fat around our kidneys. We end up with fat not immediately, but later we end up with fat around our liver as well. So all of those internal organs that are related also to things like digestion, right? So we want to take a look at, in particular, the amount of stress that we have, because stress ends up affecting our health in what we call metabolic syndrome. So again, metabolic syndrome is where we are carrying our weight around the middle, and that's an apple figure. And what is metabolic syndrome? Metabolic syndrome is some combination of these symptoms, where you have, again, central obesity, the apple figure, you have high blood pressure, you have high triglycerides, you have low HDL, which is the high density lipids or high density fat that we can use, and that is cholesterol. That is related to our different levels of cholesterol. So we're talking about low HDL is the good cholesterol. HDL is the good cholesterol. Individuals are having low HDL and high LDL, the low density lipids. And then also insulin resistance, which is high levels of sugar in our bloodstream. And remember, we know that also individuals who are dying of COVID, we're measuring the levels of sugar that they have, and these individuals also have high levels of sugar in their bloodstream. So these are all indicative of what we call metabolic syndrome, which is an inability. Those are all indicative of metabolic syndrome, which is an inability to process those extra resources that we have on board that then end up getting, like we said, in our bloodstream. They end up getting and surrounding our intestines and our internal organs, and creating a lot of health problems. We also know that when individuals are stressed, because remember, we're talking about the effects of stress as well, and its relationship to metabolic syndrome. So when individuals are stressed, so if you, for example, have a conversation and it's a negative conversation that you were having that really bothers you, we know that the effects on the body and the increases in cortisol affect us for 1 to 4 hours after that event. So we do not need to have a long-term event in order for us to have the negative repercussions of holding on to these resources that we can't use, like fats, carbohydrates, and sugars. Okay, we also know that when we have these reserves on board, what that means is that we, and when we have stress on board in particular, what that means is that we are unable to convert our cortisol that we have, so that's our energy, into cortisone. All right, we're going to talk more about this when we talk about the adrenal glands, but the job is to get these resources on board and ready for use. But if we don't use them, and that's the problem, we are experiencing stress, but we are not using the resources because we don't require the physical challenges for our stresses. They require mental challenges, but they don't require some physical challenges. So we're not using the resources. Well, here's a question that's asked often is, if our bodies make cortisol, then why are we taking steroids? Our body makes things like cortisol, which means why are we taking prednisone? Because we are not utilizing the steroids in the appropriate way. And what does that mean? We are not turning our cortisol into cortisone. What does cortisone do for us? Well, cortisone is our healing powers. So if we are not using cortisol in order to overcome, some stressor or some obstacle that we have, we're collecting these resources, and the problem is we can turn them into cortisone, and we wouldn't need things like cortisone shots, right? Or cortisone pills or cortisone ointments, because our body can turn cortisol into cortisone, but it's not. Why not? because our bodies are too stressed, and we continue that stress into the nighttime, when cortisol would change and convert into cortisone. And then we would be able to use it for healing powers. All right, so we've got all of these resources on board. We're not using them in the same way that we used to use them in hunter-gatherer days. And we are not then converting that into cortisone like we should in our sleep. So one other problem that we have with stress is that we are not getting enough sleep. And without enough sleep, we are not able to convert our cortisol into cortisone. All right? All right, so high levels of cortisol, again, are these resources which equate to belly fat. And when we have this cortisol, what our bodies also do is they tend to retain water, they tend to retain salts, and they tend to retain fats as well, along with the sugars as well, right? Because carbohydrates, if unused, turns to sugar, which ends up then getting into our bloodstream as well. So what do we have that are the two problems with our health? We have cortisol that occurs from too many resources, from the sugars in our bodies and from the fats in our bodies. So those are a couple things that we kind of want to think about. Remember, sugars also come from the carbohydrates as well. All right? Okay, so those are the three ways that we get our resources, and those are different ways that our body either converts them or stores them. Again, what we need our bodies to do is to take our cortisol, which are all of the resources that we have available, and not store those resources. We need to convert them when we sleep to cortisone, which is our healing steroid in our body. It helps our body heal. That's the reason why when the athletes injure themselves, they take steroids. Why? Because that helps them heal faster, right? Okay, so hopefully we're learning something about cortisol and cortisone. All right. Additionally, so now we know sleep has something to do with this. Additionally, we also know that alcohol also activates retention of all of those things that contribute to weight gain, like water, like salts, and like fats. Alcohol and sugar as well. Alcohol has a high content of sugar in it. And so you are increasing the likelihood that you are going to put on weight and keep weight on when you're drinking alcohol. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, and I wanted to give you kind of an idea of of sort of the ramifications of having this low level stress constantly eat away at your bodies. I've heard this analogy from my doctor, Dr. Brous, who is a biochemist and a nutritionist and a chiropractor. So he's the one that I go to for a lot of my ailments and to understand a little bit more about nutrition. And what he gave an analogy of this chronic stress that we feel, that even though it doesn't seem to blow you away, like if you had come across, for example, a bear in the woods, right? It doesn't blow you away like that. However, we do know that it has the same effect. So he gave the analogy of a fire hose. And if you had a fire hose put on you, turned towards you, the spray would knock you over. But if you had a drop of water, which they use as, torture, Chinese torture, putting a drop of water on your head that just continuously drips and drips for hour after hour, you eventually would also be in the same stages of physical exhaustion that you would be in if I blasted you with a fire hose, right? Just takes a little bit longer, but remember, the length of time that we're under the actual stressor is not necessarily indicative of how long or how large of an impact that stressor has on our bodies, how long we experience it, or how big of an impact it has on us. Okay. All right, so stress creates belly fat, and one of the reasons why is because it also contributes to all of these things that are indicators of metabolic syndrome. All right, so what do we need to do? Some of the things that we need to do is we need to there we go. Okay, so sorry about that, but I had this really cool, obviously, video for you on one of the slides, so we have to spend a half an hour on making sure that video works out. So what do we want to do, first of all, is we need to make sure that we remain active. We know that remaining active not only helps strengthen our muscles, but we also know it helps strengthen our minds as well, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. We also know that it increases, remaining active increases our ability to sleep, and our ability to sleep also helps us make sure that we convert that cortisol to cortisone for repairing our bodies. So remaining active increases our ability to sleep, which increases our ability to make cortisone for the repair of our bodies. Okay, now also, so try and do things like using your Fitbit and trying to get your 10,000 steps in. We know individuals who have had a lifetime of taking care of their bodies through exercise, like athletes that continue to exercise, that they end up having, first of all, much leaner bodies, but also sleep better and are better able to repair their bodies. So even if you're not regularly exercising, there's no time like now, happy now year, in order for you to start exercising and calling that a regular part of your routine, so that you are a person who has remained active throughout your life. That's what you're looking for. Okay. I had to look at a couple things that I had over here with settings and things like that. Okay, so make sure that you are remaining active. Also, the other thing that you want to think about when you're thinking about exercise and preparing yourself for exercise is this: that exercise is supposed to simulate a reduction in stress. The things that reduce our stress, exercise is supposed to simulate. So an escape from our regular daily routines, an escape from work, an escape from our problems, an escape from thinking about things that really are bothering us right now. If exercise becomes a burden and it is no longer an escape, then it is not benefiting us in the way of sleep, conversion to cortisone, and also in our converting to cortisol to cortisone, right? So if we are looking at exercise as an additional stressor, we are not getting the benefits of increased sleep, of conversion of cortisol, and also of weight loss. All right. Why aren't we getting the benefits in weight loss? Because we are more likely to be retaining those resources instead of losing those resources. All right. Okay, so what are some of the things that I suggest that you do? I suggested this in our last video on vitamin D, and I'm going to continue to suggest it. One of the things that you should do is see a chiropractor. If you take a look close up at this slide that I have for you, you're going to be able to see that L2, L1, L2, L3, L4, L5 have everything to do with digestion. And so if you are not losing weight, one of the things is that you might want to make sure that you are getting all of the signals that your brain and your body, because our gut is considered to be our second brain. And so is your gut getting all the signals from the brain for absorption, for digestion, and for releasing, right? All of those toxins in our body. So if you have poor digestion, remember, a healthy way to think about your body and whether or not what you're doing benefits your body is to think about the mechanisms by which these health increases occur, right? We have commercials about antidepressants and other pharmaceuticals that are saying we don't understand the method by which this occurs, like tyrokinesis or whatever that is. I'm gonna look that up to get the right name because I don't ever remember the name. But what they're saying is we don't understand the mechanism by which that individuals who are taking antidepressants end up getting these twitches and things that they have. Well, you know what? You should understand the mechanism by which that happens, because otherwise it's really bad science and it sounds like voodoo science to me. When I look at my back and I understand all the nerves that are coming from my spinal cord and my peripheral nervous system, when I understand those, then I can understand the reasons why I may not be able to, for example, build muscle. That was one of my problems. I had all kinds of problems in my lower back that wasn't allowing my upper back to be able to build muscle. And all my legs were taking on all the pressure that my upper body should have had the muscle in order to be able to move and do. That had everything to do with nerve messages from my peripheral nervous system or from my spinal cord getting out to the rest of my body, to the peripheral body. They weren't getting those messages. And so we can see that when those nerves are being stopped, when they are being, when there's pressure on them and you cannot get that sensory input, we can see a mechanism by which you may have problems. And we know exactly where those problems would be, right? Because our bodies are not only chemical systems, they are mechanical systems as well. So we can see all the areas here that might be impacted. So think about where you might have a problem and see a chiropractor and see if that chiropractor might not be able to alleviate some of the problems that you have. Not be able to alleviate some of those health issues that you have. Okay, I'm going to do another video. So what I'm trying to do now is I am giving you some strategies that you might be able to use then and concentrate on in order for you to be able to reduce your stress. Okay, some of the things that you can do in order to reduce your stress is look at the natural supplement, first of all, which is called ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, I use ashwagandha because I use Shaklee products, and their ashwagandha is in their stress relief. And I have found that taking Shaklee stress relief allows me to sleep through the night. And that is critical in reducing our stress, as we've already heard, because it converts our cortisol to cortisone, and our body needs that for healing. So reducing our stress allows us to sleep better. And so that is then and then that gives us numerous benefits as far as even health, even for our health. Remember that we need a minimum of about 8 hours of sleep. Younger people need more sleep, and our teenagers need a lot of sleep. So don't harp on them if they're sleeping a lot. But if they are sleeping too much, if they're getting closer to 12 hours of sleep, then or 14 hours of sleep in particular, then you might want to take a look at some of the things that might be associated with this isolation and anxiety feelings, that anxious feelings that they have, and feelings of depression. You might want to take a look into that a little bit if they're sleeping too much. All right, what other things can we do to help us with our weight gain and weight loss? We want to reduce our synthetic estrogen. And synthetic estrogen we find in things like plastics, for example. And there are other synthetic products as well. We can find synthetic estrogen in some of our supplements as well. So we want to reduce our synthetic estrogen. Remember that vitamin D is an estrogenic steroid. And so it increases our estrogen levels, which is wonderful for individuals who are menopausal, premenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal. To increase their vitamin D levels also increases or gives us the benefits of estrogen in our bodies. But we don't want synthetic estrogen. When you see a lot of men who are walking around with flesh on their chests, right, what look like man breasts, right, that I always think, stop drinking your water out of plastic bottles. That increases our synthetic estrogen significantly. And we have many products, man-made products, that do that. And so we want to take a look at some of these processed products, especially plastics, that increase our synthetic estrogen. That causes us to hold on to our weight as well. Keep on that fatty tissue in our bodies, because that's what estrogen does. Gives us that nice soft skin for women, right? But it also creates, soft skin creates greater fat on our bodies, okay? Or greater fat creates soft skin on our bodies. Let's put it that way, okay? All right, so we want to make sure that we reduce and think about that. In particular, plastic bottles is what we're talking about. All right, what else? We want to reduce our alcohol consumption as well. We already talked about how alcohol increases our water retention and our salt retention, and also sugars in our bodies. So if you want to lose weight, we know that alcohol has a high level of carbohydrates, because it has a high level of sugars, but it also has a high level of calories. That's what I'm thinking. It also has a high level of calories as well, so you can easily, especially if you're drinking things like beer and draft beer and some of those what do you call those, distilled beers that you've got at the breweries, right? So so when you're drinking those have a high level of calories, right? So reduce your alcohol. That will help with your weight gain as well. Now let's take a look at diets, different kinds of diets that also that we want to look at for weight loss. So we said we were going to look at weight gain and some of the problems with weight gain, and now we're going to take a look at some of the strategies that we can use for weight loss and some of the different diets that are out there. Okay, the first one that I wanted to take a look at is the keto diet. We also know that as a Atkins diet, or it's also called a low carb diet. So how are those? Are those good diets for us in order to lose weight, first of all, and in order to stay healthy? So those are the two questions that we want to take a look at. Do they help us lose weight, and do they help us stay healthy? Well, we do know that these diets, the keto diet, does help us lose weight. Individuals do find that when they have a low carb diet, it helps individuals lose weight. And likely this weight loss has a lot to do with the fact that you have reduced sugars that you have through carbohydrates. So that could also contribute to your weight loss, and that's also healthy for reducing sugars. In particular, if you have low sugars, but eat a lot of carbohydrates, right? So that will really help you lower your insulin levels, for example, and prevent things like insulin resistance. So this keto diet is based on ketones, and ketones are used up in the body as glucose or sugars in the body when we have low carbohydrates. So if we keep our carbohydrates low, the theory is that we will then utilize our sugars in our bodies and burn up those sugars. And this is true. But one of the problems with the keto diet is that keto diets are extremely low in carbohydrates, and they are high in fats, and so there are ramifications of both of those things. Some of the side effects, and one of the ones that concerns me the most with the keto diet, is brain fog. Why would individuals get brain fog from a keto diet? And the reason why is because individuals end up losing substantial levels of carbohydrates, and our brain is made up of carbohydrates. That's the substance in our brain. There's a fatty tissue in our brain, and when we don't get things like our omega-3s, they cause brain fog. And so when we are not getting carbohydrates, we end up not getting our brain is made up of cholesterol. And so individuals end up getting brain fog because they are not getting the appropriate nutrients to their brain. So, and also the other problem with keto diets is this. So we see lots of brain fog, not getting enough of the good cholesterol to your brain. We get a lot of the bad cholesterol, which is creating this brain fog, and also fatty tissue building up around our organs as well. So that's the biggest problem with the keto diet, is the high concentration of fats, which we know is not good for our bodies either. Can we lose weight? Yes, but we find that the keto or low carb diet is not really a very healthy diet. Remember, before you change any dietary plans or make any dietary plans, make sure that you see your regular doctor about this. And if you can't see your regular doctor, or your regular doctor is giving you traditional medicine answers, you can always see me about this. I do have a background in nutrition, and I also, again, look at how nutrition affects our mental health, which is why I emphasize things like stress, for example. Okay. Okay, so what are problems, just as a summary, with this kind of diet, the keto diet? People find nutrition deficiencies. Individuals have liver problems because they have to metabolize so much fat that their liver has a problem metabolizing all of that. And again, the same thing with the kidneys. So we see this metabolic syndrome with the buildup of these fats around our internal organs. We also experience other things like, for example, with that high level of fat, there's low level of fiber, and individuals then have problems with regularity as well. Okay, moving on. How about the paleo diet? Now, the paleo diet is basically taking a look at how did we eat in our hunter-gatherer days. And the theory is that our systems haven't changed significantly since hunter-gatherer days, so our diet should basically consist of things like lean meat, fruits, vegetables, nuts, fish, and seeds. Anything that is part of what they call staple crops like corn, wheat, and rice are not part of a paleo diet. Also, dairy products, legumes, and refined sugars are also forbidden in a paleo diet. And so we can see here that a paleo diet really sounds like a very nutritional way to approach eating, and it is. Many studies find that the paleo diet can be good for us. However, and it does help us lower our weight, and it does help us maintain good weight. Now, not significantly necessarily, depending on how much meat we eat, right? But lowering glucose levels have been a benefit to the paleo diet, as well as better blood pressure control. But there are some concerns regarding diet and nutrition, whether or not individuals are getting all of the nutritional values that they need. They do talk about that although things like grains and cereals are off limits, including dairy, because of our dietary limitations of hunter-gatherers, we know that we can digest those foods, and that in particular regarding dairy products, there's needed calcium that we get in there. It can be fortified with vitamin D, so we can get some vitamin D and also some protein as well. Although we can see from a heavy meat diet, we can get plenty of protein as well. Let's take a look at some other concepts in dieting. So those are a couple of the very popular diets. We also have concepts that are popular in dieting that include things like intermittent fasting. So is intermittent fasting good for us? And what we find is so intermittent fasting allows us, instead of lots of small meals per day, what the concern is that insulin levels become erratic, rising and lowering with all of those small meals a day. This way, what we do is we reduce the rising and lowering of insulin levels so that they do not become so dysfunctional. And so intermittent fasting says, all right, I have long periods of time where I don't eat anything, and then I kind of bulk up a little bit. And so this is really more of a practice than it is necessarily a diet concerning certain types of food. And what we do find is that individuals do have some promising results with fasting, intermittent fasting, as far as weight loss goes. So that's good. But as far as nutritional value, there is really no information on the diet or what people should be eating. And so individuals very often, when they start fasting, in particular if they choose this kind of diet where they get used to being hungry for a while or for longer periods of time, well, that may promote things like dysfunctional eating habits, like anorexia, or maybe even things like bulimia, right? So if I end up purging, for example, after a long fast, I might feel guilty about eating that much, and it may be brought on by the great hunger that I experience because of intermittent fasting. So remember, we still have to have, even if this is a good way to diet, we still have to make sure that we are taking in the appropriate foods and dietary and meeting our dietary needs through vitamins and minerals that we have in our foods. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much or how little we eat if we are not meeting those dietary needs that we have. Okay, all right, so that's intermittent fasting. And then the bottom line that I have for you is that what we need to do is, if you want to help control things like metabolic syndrome, insulin levels, and weight, and also cortisol levels and retaining those resources, what we really need to do is focus on sugar. What we have found is that through studies, individuals do not get addicted to fats. We can leave fats and we have no withdrawal symptoms. We also do not get addicted to carbohydrates. We have no withdrawal symptoms when we go off of carbohydrates. But we do have withdrawal symptoms when we go off of sugar. And actually, when you think about it, carbohydrates are kind of somewhere in the middle since they do turn to sugars. Some people do feel like they have an addiction, for example, to breads in the same way that individuals have an addiction to sugar. And we do know individuals get an addiction because they have withdrawal symptoms. And so one of the best things that you can really do to help control your weight gain and also control your metabolism is eliminating sugar, in particular refined sugar. Now, if you have to have, and you're a sugar person, think about certain alternatives and ways that you can begin to still enjoy your sugars, but reduce them significantly. So one of the things that I do is I have little squares of dark chocolate, and dark chocolate is filled with antioxidants. And that gives me, when I find out that when I have used self-control regarding my sugar and regulated my sugar in my diet very well, I don't have the cravings then for the dark chocolate, and I can satisfy a little bit of my, lust for chocolate through just having just a little square of that chocolate. So that's great. I have also found that Shaklee's 180, which helps you metabolize, which helps you increase your metabolism, does a couple things for me. It not only increases my metabolism, but it also reduces my cravings for sugar. Now, they have a glucose suppressant as well, or some glucose regulator. I didn't find that regulated my cravings for sugar. I did find that the Shaklee 180 increased my metabolism and also decreased my cravings for sugar. So that's a great recommendation if you want to help decrease your sugar. So a couple Shaklee recommendations then is take a look at the Shaklee 180 and also take a look at the stress relief that has several ingredients in it, including ashwagandha, that really does help me sleep through the night, which is so beneficial in converting that cortisol, that stress hormone, into cortisone, which is our healing steroid. Okay, and then the last thing I said, so we've talked about weight gain, we've talked about weight loss and some of the different diets that are out there, and now let's talk about the benefits of exercise. And I have one slide here for you that I'm going to show you that shows you the benefits of exercise, and I'm going to talk about it from this one slide. So there are 3 major benefits to exercise, and you can see here that I took this from what is called a meta-analysis. And although there are many other meta-analyses that are out there, and some of them more up to date, this is the one that I like to focus on, which was done by Callahan in 2004. And a meta-analysis is where we take all the studies in an area of interest. So in this area of interest, it was exercise. And we take a look at every published and non-published study in the area of interest. And then what we do is we take a look at all of the results, and we're able to statistically assimilate all the results in all the different studies that have been done, all of them, leaving out none. That would be an appropriate meta-analysis. And then we see the findings across all the studies that have been done in that area. And so this was a meta-analysis that was done by Callahan in 2004, and it looks at the outcomes on depression, anxiety, and cognitive functioning. So those were the areas of research that they were looking at related to depression. And what did they find? Well, what they found is that, first of all, we have got these what are called the daily adjusted life years, our daily adjusted life years, or our daily is what we call that. Our daily adjusted life years is how long do we live as adjusted by whatever that complication or variable is that we're looking at. So in this case, we're looking at depression. So how much is our daily how much is our daily adjusted life years change when we have depression? So of course it's going to decrease, right? So decrease our adjusted life years, or it's going to decrease our life expectancy. So how much does depression decrease our life expectancy? Well, depression is 8th among males for health problems. So ranking as 8th among major health problems is depression for men, and it ranks 3rd for women. It accounts for a decrease in life expectancy of 2.8%, or 2.8% of our disability adjusted life years is decreased by 2.8% for men when they experience depression, and by 5.8% for women when they experience depression. So that's one of the outcomes of the ranking of depression. What have we found as far as exercise goes, though? Exercise helps, first of all, increase life expectancy, but also we find that exercise in all the cases of depression, anxiety, and cognitive functioning, we find that exercise helps the individuals who are the worst off. So for depression, schizophrenics who exercise ended up seeing a greater benefit in exercise than most other individuals. Why? They were experiencing a more extreme form of mental illness. So what did we see with exercise in schizophrenics? We saw that it reduced auditory hallucinations, it raised their self-esteem, it improved their sleep patterns, and it improved just general behaviors overall. One of the reasons why we might see this increase or these benefits in exercise, in particular of individuals who have more extreme mental illness, is because what it does is it changes several things. Number one, it changes our daily routine. And in changing our daily routine, individuals feel less depressed. They are experiencing more engagement in life. They are utilizing and activating hormones and reward neurotransmitters when we are engaged in life. And so when we change our daily routines because of exercise, so now we may decide to go out to a fitness club, or we may join a walking group, those things help change our, for example, levels of serotonin. So we know that those things can increase levels of serotonin as well as levels of dopamine. We also know that individuals, again, have increased interaction, and our greatest need is other human beings. So when we increase our interaction, we lower depression because, again, we increase things like oxytocin, which is both a hormone and a neurotransmitter that we call the love drug. So we fulfill our basic need of belonging to others or needing to be with other people. We also see changes. Why else do we see changes? Because individuals begin to master their challenges. And when individuals master their challenges, this is related to increases in dopamine. So dopamine is our neurotransmitter that rewards us when we set goals. So when we are exercising, and walking with other people and meeting with other people, we are setting goals to do things. And so this increases our self-esteem because it increases feelings of mastery. And that also increases, again, other neurotransmitters such as dopamine. So now we're increasing serotonin, we're increasing dopamine, we're increasing oxytocin, and all of those things lift us out of depression. And all of those are activated because of exercise. Okay, and so, all right, so that has to do with changes in depression. Let's take a look at changes in anxiety and the measures that they looked at and were most familiar with looking at with anxiety. So what they looked at with anxiety was, first of all, they compared chronic exercise versus acute exercise. And chronic exercise is exercising on a regular basis compared to acute is I occasionally decide to exercise. And of course, we know that reductions in anxiety were greater for individuals who exercised on a regular basis. So remember, get active is what we want to do. We also know that higher intensity exercise was not necessarily better for reducing anxiety. Remember what we said about exercise. Exercise has to simulate stress reduction, right? So what we are doing is we are escaping from our stressors when we exercise. As I said, if you are not escaping from your stressors when you're exercising, then you may not be exercising with a whole lot of benefit. We need to have exercise, but it doesn't have to be extremely high intensity for long periods of time. All right, so we do like things that give us greater cardiovascular activity. That reduces anxiety. However, so does yoga, which doesn't give us the same kind of cardiovascular benefits. What really is most important is not necessarily the type of exercise, but the duration of exercise. And the duration of exercise should be approximately 30 minutes to get the most benefits from it. Yeah, I just wanted to see if I had any other notes over here that I wanted to say. So 30 minutes, typically around no more than 30 minutes of somewhat high intensity cardiovascular activity reduces anxiety the most. And what we also find there is, again, once again, individuals who had some kind of psychiatric illness had the least benefit from this, and those individuals who, those people who had the least psychiatric illness had the least benefit, and those individuals with greater psychiatric illnesses had a greater benefit from exercise. All right, finally, exercise and the benefit of cognitive functioning. So we see here that yoga is better for cognitive functioning than other types of exercise, such as jogging, or weightlifting, or those kinds of things. So yoga we found was best for cognitive functioning. We also found that chronic exercise, again compared to acute exercise, is better for cognitive functioning as well. So you need to be active on a regular basis. Again, we see that individuals who were worse off in cognitive functioning here got the greatest benefit. So in all cases, individuals who were the most depressed, schizophrenics, or suffering from the greatest mental illness, or the greatest anxiety, or here the least cognitive functioning, which are older adults, get the greatest benefit then, cognitively speaking, from exercise. And also the last component that they suggested contributes to greater cognitive functioning as exercise is a group size that's moderate. So if I'm in a class of 30 individuals, I'm not getting the same kind of benefit, cognitively speaking, as I would if I were in a class with 10 individuals or less. Okay, that's all that I have for today. So that was our little lecture or episode on weight gain, weight loss, and exercise. Now, let's just take a quick look at, I want to have a today's question for you. And today's question actually is really more of a challenge. Tomorrow we celebrate Martin Luther King Day. And what I would like to challenge you to take a look at is to try and better understand the holiday, to better understand what did he do for the civil rights movement? Why do we celebrate Martin Luther King Day as opposed to maybe some other holidays? So take a look at that, but try and open up your mind and your heart in positive ways. If you go and seek this question and answers for this question, but you are doing it with a I'm thinking of an impure heart is what I'm thinking of, right? If you're doing it with a negative attitude or biases or prejudices, then you're likely going to only find the answers that you want to find, right? That help support your beliefs. But if you go with an open mind and try and learn something about somebody else's opinion on this or a different opinion than your own, that requires great humility, which means that you put your pride aside in order to find out answers on things that you may not have answers readily available. Other things that you might want to look at is, for example, critical race theory. And why is critical race theory so divisive? And if critical race theory isn't the answer, is there a better answer? Because we certainly do need more and more information, especially when we are in isolation, on how to connect with other individuals. And one great way to connect with other individuals is trying to understand their perspectives. So today's question really is more of a challenge to you, and that is to try and go outside your box and learn a little bit more about MLK Day and understand just a little bit more maybe about the civil rights movement or individuals who are underserved. I was told I wasn't supposed to use that from the CDC. I like it because individuals who are in minority positions are very often underserved. So take a look at a group that may be underserved and try and think about that group outside your box. This is Dr. Annette Farovich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. Don't forget that you can find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. And you can also email me or with questions or concerns or comments, or, you know, I wouldn't mind actually trying to answer some of your hard questions for you, kind of in a Dear Abby kind of way. Find out what that is, too, if you don't know what that is. So you can email me at Dr. Farovich, F as in Frank, E-R-A, V as in Victor, I-C-H, Dr. Farovich at healthymindbodyspirit.net. And I hope that you join me next week. Don't forget what we will be looking at next week. Don't forget, we start our healthy cleanse a week from Monday to a week from tomorrow. Next Sunday, we will be talking about what is different about our food today. So join me here at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to, my New Year's resolution, here's another thought for today, another today's question. Are you keeping your New Year's resolution? My New Year's resolution was to get here on time, and so far I am not doing well. But I will tell you this, I have not given up on my New Year's resolution. I am going to continue to try and get here on time for you. Yeah, not always easy to do, but mostly because I dedicate my Sunday only to trying to get up and prepared, because the rest of the time I have to dedicate it to my students who really are enjoyable this semester. So that's all I have to say. Adios. Thank you for joining me. Take care.